Hey, 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 what's up? Still becoming? Welcome back to another episode, another week coming up for us. I just hope you've all had a good past week, and I'm really excited to get into this episode titled Confidence, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to have it. And again, remember you can follow along on my journey at Still Becoming 26. You can also follow the show wherever you get this podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Apple, and Spotify. And just really had a good workout. To me, it was the best workout I've had in a while. And, it just made my day, also thinking about what I did after that workout, having to go to work and just, it's sometimes we overlook that. And I think this episode just plays into that idea of it's okay, it's okay to feel proud. And there's a distinction between confidence and arrogance. And I think, if you can't be confident because you think it's arrogance, I will say hopefully this episode kind of really helps you to separate the two and feel okay. Feel excited that your journey is coming along here, as with mine, where it's always not going to be on top. But hey, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt to at least have confidence going into it. And so, I just hope, the episode today helps your week this upcoming week come along and helps you feel a bit more confident because I know I've needed it. And I know I'm very happy I've gotten a little bit of it, over this past weekend, and, let's get into it. There's a feeling I've been trying to understand lately. I think I finally found the words for it. I feel confident, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to. That's the conflict I have because confidence isn't completely absent from me. It's there. I can feel it sometimes when I finish a workout like the one I did yesterday. I feel it when I look back on everything I've survived to this point in my life. I feel it when I read something back and think, damn, that was actually good. Like yesterday's my results, I felt that exact way. I hope you out there have done something, and you think back to that. I feel it when I imagine what I could still accomplish with my running. I feel that one a lot. That's really close, for me. There are moments when I genuinely believe in myself, but almost immediately another feeling comes in. It's like, an alarm goes off into me, and it's like, hold on. Are you really allowed to feel good about yourself? Are you allowed to believe you're talented? Are you allowed to say you're strong? Or are you allowed to actually have something, to do something special? Because what happens if you believe it and you're wrong? What happens if you say it out loud and then fail? What happens if someone hears your confidence and thinks you're arrogant? What happens, if you start taking up too much space? So instead of letting myself feel confident, I negotiate with it. I soften it. I apologize for it. I add disclaimers. I say, I think I'm pretty good, but I know I still have a lot of work to do. Or I'm proud of myself, but it wasn't really that impressive, or I believe I can accomplish this, but I know it's probably sounds ridiculous, you know. Why do I always need, to add that second part? I'm sure those of you out there clearly add that second part just like me, why can't I just say I'm proud of myself? I'm a good runner, I'm a good writer. I have worked hard, I have something meaningful to offer. Why does saying those things make me feel exposed? And I'm realizing that this isn't only about confidence, it's about permission. So more along the way, I learned that confidence could be dangerous, that being proud could make people feel uncomfortable, that believing in yourself too much could cause someone to knock you back down. Maybe you were taught not to brag. Maybe you were taught to stay humble. Maybe you got excited about something, and someone reminded you that everything could go wrong. Maybe you've tried to celebrate and you were made to feel selfish, dramatic, or full of yourself. So for me personally, I learned to stay small, not because I didn't have confidence, but because confidence didn't always feel safe. And there's a difference. You can know deep down that you're capable of more and still be afraid to admit it. You can have evidence that you're strong and feel guilty for recognizing your own strength. You can be proud of the person you've become and still hear an old voice telling you to calm down before somebody else does it for you. I feel this deeply when I'm running. There are moments when I look at the work, I've done and think, I'm strong, I'm experienced, I'm capable of becoming faster. I know I am. I'm capable of doing something that even I might have believed was impossible. And I love that feeling. To me, it's so much fun when you can feel that way. And for a moment, I can see myself clearly, not through anxiety, not through fear, not through comparison. I see the person who wakes up early, the person who runs when it's uncomfortable, the person who has failed, struggled, questioned himself, and still returned, the person who keeps believing that age does not decide whether the pursuit is over, the person who deserves confidence. But then fear shows up, and fear says, don't get ahead of yourself. Remember the workouts you didn't finish. Remember the races that didn't go the way you wanted. Remember how much faster other people are. Remember you could still fail. And suddenly I'm no longer allowed to feel confident because I haven't earned certainty. But confidence is not certainty. Confidence does not mean I know exactly what is going to happen. It does not mean I believe I'll never struggle. It does not mean I think I'm better than everyone else. It doesn't even mean, that I know I will accomplish every goal I set. No, confidence means I trust myself enough to step forward without knowing. It means I believe I'm worthy of trying. I don't need a guaranteed outcome before I'm allowed to stand tall. That's something I'm learning because I think I've spent a lot of my life believing confidence had to be proven in advance. First accomplishing the goal, then you can believe in yourself. First becoming successful, then you can call yourself talented. First receive approval, then be proud. But it doesn't work that way. You need some confidence before the result. You need enough belief to begin. You need, enough belief to return after failure. You need to keep enough belief so you can keep going when the evidence it feels incomplete. The result doesn't create all the confidence. Sometimes the confidence is what carries you toward the result. And maybe that's why it feels so vulnerable. Because when I say, I believe in myself, there's still a chance I could fail. There's still a chance somebody could laugh. Still a chance I could fall short. But maybe confidence isn't the belief that I won't fail, that I won't fall. Maybe confidence is knowing that the falling will not erase me. A bad race doesn't erase me. A difficult workout doesn't erase me. Someone being faster, getting older, and being afraid doesn't erase me. Failure cannot take away everything I've built unless I decide that failure gets to define my entire story. And I'm tired of allowing every difficult moment to become evidence against worthiness. I'm tired of treating confidence like something I'm borrowing and I have to return, like a library book. I'm tired of waiting for someone else to give me permission to believe in the person I'm becoming, because whose permission am I waiting for, honestly? A coach, a race result, a stranger, someone from my past, a version of myself who was taught that pride was dangerous. At some point, I have to give that permission to myself. And that doesn't mean I need to become louder, arrogant, or disrespectful. Confidence and arrogance are not the same thing. Arrogance says, I need to be above you in order to be valuable. Or feel valuable. Confidence says your value does not threaten mine, and my value does not threaten yours. Arrogance needs to prove something. Confidence can simply exist. Real confidence can be quiet. It can look like taking a breath before you start a hard workout and saying, I can handle the next part. It can look like sharing something you've created without immediately insulting it first. It can look like accepting a compliment instead of arguing with the person who gave it to you. It can look like standing at the starting line and allowing yourself to believe that you belong there. That may be the hardest part, allowing myself to be proud before the final result, because my story isn't complete. My biggest goals are still in front of me. I'm learning. I'm still struggling. I still have moments when anxiety gets loud. I still question myself. Maybe confidence and fear can exist together. Maybe I can say I'm scared and I believe in myself. I am uncertain and I am proud of how far I've come. I don't exactly know what will happen, and I still believe I belong in the pursuit. I might fail, and I'm still going to show up as someone who expects more from himself. Not because I hate who I am, but because I finally believe I'm worthy of discovering who I can become. That's the confidence I want. Not the confidence that needs to shout over everybody else. Not the confidence that pretends pain does not exist. I can adjust without abandoning myself. I can remain humble without making myself small. I can respect the difficulty of a goal without acting like I'm unworthy of reaching it. And maybe somebody listening to this feels the same way. Maybe you out there feel just as I've been describing. Maybe confidence has started showing up inside of you, because every time it does, You push it back down, I'm sure, just like me. Maybe you're afraid of what people will think. Maybe you're afraid that believing in yourself will make failure hurt more. Maybe you're waiting until you're more successful, more accomplished, more attractive, more experienced, or more certain. But if you don't need to wait, what if confidence isn't a reward you receive after becoming worthy? What if confidence is part of recognizing that you were already worthy of taking a chance? You're allowed to be proud of yourself. You're allowed to believe that you are good at something. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to see potential in yourself that others may not understand yet. You're allowed to walk in a room, onto a track, toward a starting line, or into the next chapter of your life without apologizing for your presence. You do not have to shrink your dreams to prove that you are humble, and you do not have to wait until the story is over before you're proud of the person you're fighting through it. So yes, I feel confident. I'm starting to learn how to hold it. I'm starting to learn that I don't need to earn permission from the people who taught me to doubt myself. Maybe I can give that permission to myself now. Maybe I can say, I believe in myself. I don't know exactly where this journey is going to take me, but I believe there is more inside of me. I believe work matters. I believe my voice matters. I believe that I'm allowed to chase something extraordinary. And whether I reach it or not, I will not be ashamed that I had the courage to believe. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to follow my journey on Instagram at stillbecoming26. Maybe it'll help you to say, hey, this ordinary guy, who's trying to just keep pushing himself and keep trying it, isn't so different from me. I hope this upcoming week, will help you establish some confidence and look at the things you've done lately and allow yourself to step in that, skin of confidence, and I just want you to remember, you are still becoming. And remember, you are the only one stopping you. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.